Elbow, elbow, wrist, wrist. Welcome to Great Outdoors Live, yours to explore. I'm M. Chad Edwards, an education specialist with the United States Forest Service. Now, the USDA Forest Service manages 193 million acres of national forests and grasslands across the country. Right now, I'm honored to be your host for the day. And this program is brought to you by the U.S. Forest Service and also Wyoming PBS, with lots of other partners who you'll get to meet throughout this broadcast. So, you should know that we're webcasting live from the historic Wapiti Ranger Station in the Shoshone National Forest here in Wyoming. You should even be able to see a map on your screen if you're paying attention. Now, the Shoshone is a special place because it's the first national forest in the United States. Behind me, you can see the Wapiti Ranger Station, which was built back in 1903. And it's been in continuous use ever since. Now, also behind me, you'll see a broadcast truck. That's really important because here behind these mountains, we don't get any cell phone signal. Mine doesn't work, yours won't either, so that truck is helping us to broadcast and get a signal out to you and get your questions here to us. Thank you so much. All right, so what are we gonna do today? We are gonna learn about public lands, what they are and their history. We're gonna learn sort of the benefits of public lands. We're going to have some discussion about Native Americans and even the reintroduction of bison on some Native American reservations. We're going to look at the importance of large ecosystems. We'll look at some of the problems that are facing our public lands and how you can help. Later in the broadcast, we're going to meet a golden eagle with a 7-foot wingspan. I mean, that's huge. That's like wider than most basketball players. Also later in this broadcast, we're going to meet a ranger who leads a pack string of animals. And if you don't know what a pack string is, just stick around and you'll be glad that you did. All right? Now, this program is live, and that's so that you can participate. So we want your questions. Please, please, please send them to us. You can go to our website at www.greatoutdoorslive.org, or you can email them at the address on your screen. Just notice that says field trips. Okay, it's important, put that S in there. Or if you're in the Facebook environment, we take your questions there also, all right? We have a great team answering your questions online. Scientists galore. We have everything from wildlife biologists, botanists, to educators, and a whole variety of professions. Now, here they are. You should see them in a picture because they're not all here with us. They're somewhere else helping to answer questions online. But here right now, we have David Diamond with the Greater Yellowstone Coordinating Committee. David, hey. And we also have Sandy Frost with the U.S. Forest Service, who I get to work with a good little bit. Look at this weather, though. Who could have asked for a more pretty scene? It's a little cold out here, but man, the snow is just making it perfect, I've got to say. There's no such thing as bad weather as long as you're dressed for it, right? All right. So, hey, let's also give a quick wave to Miss Jessica Dominic from the Wapiti School and her students. Hey, we're gonna check back in with you guys in a little bit to see what you're doing here in this outdoor classroom. So you can keep doing what you're doing. We'll come right back to you, all right? Okay. Whew. So here we are. Let's get right into the topic. I'm gonna introduce Christy Saltzman. She's a public information officer
Hey, I'm Chat.
with the Forest Service here on the Shoshone. How you doing?
I'm doing great. It's beautiful out.
I'm loving it. Can you do me a favor though? Let's start with, what are public lands?
Awesome. So public lands are all sorts of different things. They might be like the pocket park you talked about in that video that I'm sure you've all seen. And then there are also these wide open, vast spaces, like here on the Shoshone National Forest in the mountains. So, there are tons of diverse things in between. You've got those little parks where you can go in your city and watch a movie, or maybe listen to a concert. Those might be managed by your local cities. And then you get these big national parks and national forests. Those tend to be managed by, the federal government. We have a lot of ability to manage those resources. But the most important thing is that they're public lands.
Public.
And we can all visit them. We can do things like hiking, go biking. We could go snowshoeing today. It's such a beautiful day. We could do that for your first time.
I'd love that.
You can enjoy the water, but they are managed for us today as well as future generations to come.
Now, Christy, why were the public lands originally established?
Right, so take yourself back to about 1870, and you've got the public, the general people within the United States moving west from the East Coast. Cities are building up, people are moving to do things like mining or just see if they can get their own plot of land somewhere out west. And we had some pretty smart people that said, let's keep some of this wild. Let's set aside the first national park to the west. In 1872, Yellowstone was set aside. And then shortly thereafter, President Benjamin Harrison decided, let's do some more. And he set aside the Yellowstone Timberland Preserve. And that was part of the Shoshone. Now in 1905, things kind of shifted, and all of a sudden we had what's called the U.S. Forest Service as part of the Department of Agriculture.
Like growing things, agriculture.
Like growing things, exactly, which we'll talk a little bit more about, I think, in the future of this broadcast. But when you add in all of this expansive 2.4 million acres that the Shoshone is, we're over 80% either wilderness, which means you can't do anything motorized or mechanized in it. And then we've got another like 25% that you can't do any driving in either. So we're gonna give you a little hint as how we get some work done a little later in the program. But when you add it all together, imagine all the places you could go explore on your public lands.
This sounds fun and everything, but like really, why is this important and what are the benefits?
Right, so not only can we go have fun and recreate on public lands, but we also manage these lands to help make sure that there's wildlife habitat. Whether that's the great big grizzly bears and moose that we have here on the Shoshone, or the high alpine pikas. We help make sure that their habitats are here today and for years and years to come. Now we also help local businesses. So say we wanted to go and do some snowshoeing. I bet you don't have snowshoes.
I didn't bring any with me, no.
Right, so you'd go buy some in Cody and you'd be helping the local economy there.
I can see that.
And we also manage for multiple uses, not just that recreation fun stuff, but here on National Forest land, we also manage for things like grazing cattle, timber production. You know, we do need wood to build those houses that people love to live in.
Kind of like the log cabin behind us.
Just like that.
All right.
And here's a little interesting fact. Did you know that over 1/5 of the population of the United States gets their drinking water from National Forest lands?
You know, we actually did a program on this. You can check it
Oh,
out
you
at
did.
freshwaterlive.org.
That's right.
Yeah.
But
Okay.
the most important thing to remember is that this is public lands. This is your lands for you and future generations to explore.
Oh, yes. It's so inspiring to think how these lands were established all that time ago for us to enjoy today for a sustainable life now and for our kids and grandkids and great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-grandkids. So right now, we're gonna go to, do we have any Q&A, anything yet? We are gonna roll a video about bison. Check this one out and we'll be right back with you.
To many Native Americans, the buffalo are considered a form of kin and for centuries were essential to their culture and their very rhythm of life. Utilized for food, clothing, and tools, many traditional ceremonies revolved entirely around promoting the health of the buffalo herd. In the 16th century, North America contained 25 to 30 million buffalo, but with white men moving west and a high price to be paid for buffalo skins back east, the North American bison were hunted almost to extinction. To many natives, the loss of the buffalo from the land was equally as egregious as being forced onto the western reservations. Now, 130 years later, and after decades of effort, buffalo are finally being reintroduced on Shoshone land at the Wind River Indian Reservation in central Wyoming.
Zijn beetje, zaas ik een beetje aan ornisinga. Ik uinge shika se dingwich. Osu shika een beetje aan suka hatwin. I'm really happy to offer a prayer for something that we haven't seen in a number of years here. What our older folks used to thrive on, what we used to survive on, was the bison, the buffalo. In Indian culture, we have survived on these animals, and it's a great day to welcome them back again today.
Prior to today, the tribes managed 6 of the 7 ungulate species that were here before Lewis and Clark, including the predators. There's very few places in the West that's the case.
There has been times through the years when the United States government has stood on the wrong side of this issue, and it's truly humbling but also proud to now stand on the right side of this issue and to help restore bison to this landscape. I just want to congratulate them and their leadership and Jason Baldus and everyone else involved in this and thing. We're just honored to have played any role, and congratulations. What a truly wonderful day for the Eastern Shoshone people.
This is incredibly important for tribal culture because this is not only about ecological restoration, it's about cultural revitalization. The history between buffalo and Native Americans is almost synonymous. We both occupy remnants of our vast territory that we once inhabited. You know, they tried to stamp out our culture, they tried to stamp out our language. They tried to annihilate the buffalo, to annihilate Native people. By being proud of who we are as Native people and being able to have buffalo in our lives again means that we've reconnected a severed tie that's been 131 years old.
Cool, I hope you enjoyed watching that video about the reintroduction of bison on the Wind River Reservation. Now, we have been talking about the history before this land was settled, when the Native Americans were the keepers of these lands. It's interesting that both Shoshone, like the Shoshone National Forest, and Wapiti, those are both Native American words. Wapiti is a Shawnee and Cree word for elk. So the history kind of still shows even in the names. Now, there's another very special animal to Native Americans, and it's now special to all Americans, because in 2016, bison became the national mammal. Bison,
Very cool.
just like we have the eagle as the national bird. Now, bison used to roam the plains in huge herds. They were providing food and materials for the Native American plains tribes, but due to that extensive hunting and slaughter from the Western settlers, by 1889, bison were almost extinct. There were fewer than 600 left. 600.
Oh my gosh.
And that impact on Native Americans was devastating. Now, in 1872, the Yellowstone National Park protected its remaining 2 dozen. We're talking 24
Wow.
animals. But since then, with lots of care and intensive conservation measures by organizations and agencies around here, that number has climbed from 24 up to 31,000.
Awesome.
So I hope you enjoyed that. And now let's go to a question. Hey, David, is there anything coming in from the kids online? What do you have for us?
Believe it or not, even in this snowstorm, we're getting questions from all over the country. Ohio, New Mexico, California. One question here from Jasmine in Ohio. She wants to know, is it free to visit a national forest?
Ooh.
Oh, that's a good one.
That is a great question, Jasmine. So there are some places on some national forests where it might cost a little bit to actually go to that specific place. But for the majority of the land that is managed by the USDA Forest Service, it is actually free to come out and visit it.
Great. So one other question is, people wanted to know what your favorite public lands were and what you like to do when you visit.
Ooh, my favorite public land. There's actually, I work for the National Forest Service, but there's a national park not far from my house that I love. It's called Prince William Forest Park. And I love going there and getting lost in the woods. There's a technical term for that. It's called orienteering, but it's usually just me wandering around lost. Yeah.
Yeah.
How about you, Chrissy?
Well, I am kind of partial, to the Shoshone National Forest. I know you guys at home can't see too much of it right now because we have some snow, but I love doing everything outdoors here.
I can believe it. It's really beautiful here. So we're going to go to a fun fact. All right, we'll do that and come right back with you. All right, welcome back from the fun fact, and I want to take this moment to introduce you to another friend. Her name is Heather Basak, and she works with the National Parks. She is a National Park Ranger at Yellowstone National Park. I'm sorry, I'm getting a little bit cold. My brain is still sharp, don't worry. All right, so now the Shoshone National Forest is a part of the greater Yellowstone ecosystem, which encompasses 18 million acres. Now, what is the greater Yellowstone ecosystem and why is it important?
Yeah, so we're actually standing right in the middle of the greater Yellowstone ecosystem right here. And it's one of the largest and most intact ecosystems in the continental United States. Now, the entire 18 million acres, and you can think about that like 18 million football fields put together, is one giant ecosystem because it has a lot of the same characteristics. Our underlying geology is made up of some volcanic features, as well as some glacially carved landforms. We also have wetlands, grasslands, forests, and alpine or high mountain habitat here. And of course, we have some really wonderful wildlife like bears, wolves, bison, golden eagles, and trout that all call this chilly place home. Now, over time, as we learned more and more about the greater Yellowstone ecosystem, we've come to realize just how important having both large and intact or connected ecosystems are.
So why is it that the size matters? Why does a large ecosystem, why is that better?
Sure, so size can make a difference because all animals need several things in order to live. They all need food, water, shelter, and this last one, space. We often forget about that one, but space has a lot of great benefits for our wildlife. There's more room for different species to be in the same area. There's more room for migration routes or large home ranges. And then it helps our wildlife actually cope with natural events like disease, fires, flooding, drought, because animals can move from the affected area to one that's not. Now, we see all these benefits actually right here in the greater Yellowstone ecosystem. For example, grizzly bears, an adult male, may travel up to 2,000 square miles in their lifetime.
Wow.
Amtrak, that would be like if you walked every single inch of Delaware. It's huge. And our bears actually need all that much space because they need to use different food sources and different habitats at different times of year.
So I can, I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
but our bears are not the only ones that take advantage of this massive amount of space. Our ungulates or hooved mammals like bison, elk, and pronghorn can migrate up to 100 miles or more from their summer ranges to winter ranges where it's easier for them to find food. And as they travel, they actually cross political boundaries, public lands, and private property.
So I can see that if they're going hundreds of miles, that the connection of that land is important. How about you let the kids know a bit more about why that connection is important?
So size isn't the only important thing. Connections across state lines, public lands, and private property is so important for our ecosystem health. And we're having a little bit of an issue with the connections in the greater Yellowstone ecosystem.
Like what?
More and more people are moving into this area, building houses, building roads and fences, and it can make it difficult for animals to travel through it because it can fragment or break apart ecosystems into much smaller pieces. You can think about that like islands of habitat surrounded by an ocean of buildings, roads, and fences.
Okay.
And our pronghorn are having a little bit of trouble with that. Now, when you look at a fence on private property, you may not think that it's a really big deal because deer and elk will be able to jump right over it, but our pronghorn won't. They actually crawl underneath the fences. So if there's a really low fence, our pronghorn might have to travel miles out of their migration route in order to find some place to cross. And sometimes they unfortunately get stuck in the barbed wire.
Ouch.
Ouch indeed.
Ouch.
Now, other animals might have some other problems because fragmentation can create less habitat for them. Every year, animals all over the country get hit by cars as they cross busy highways, busy roads, just trying to access different parts of their habitat. Some animals have even moved into human areas where they can come into conflict with people. So we have these problems, but I have some really good news.
We need some good news.
We have some good news. Now, as we are identifying these problems, people are coming up with solutions how to make these ecosystems intact again.
Okay.
Yeah, so some ranchers are starting to redo their fences so pronghorn can more easily travel underneath without getting stuck. And there are even wildlife bridges in some parts of the country that cross busy highways and roads. And so it drastically reduces the amount of wildlife death there. But what I think is so amazing about these solutions is that it shows cooperation between public lands like us and private citizens. And so it really shows that we can all do our part to protect our ecosystems and keep them connected.
So awesome.
I know.
I know we manage a lot of land.
Mm-hmm.
There's actually a whole 400 million acres of state and private lands that we get to share our science with through our state and private forestry. Yes. So thank you for filling us in on the importance of keeping these large ecosystems intact. And we are going to go to some question and answers because that's so important. How about we step back here and go to Sandy? Do you have any questions for us coming in?
This is such fun. Lots of kids are wondering about the weather here. But we have a question from Caden from the Indian High School, Wyoming Indian High School here in Wyoming. And Caden is wondering if there's lots of predators here.
Oh, so we do have quite a few predators in the greater Yellowstone ecosystem. Bears, both black and grizzly bears are here. And we actually have a grizzly bear skull right next to Amchat. And that's a really favorite predator of people who visit this area. Another popular predator that we have are wolves. And that's a skull right there. So wolves were reintroduced into Yellowstone National Park back in 1995, and they've spread out throughout the greater Yellowstone ecosystem. Besides those two predators, we have a wolverine, which is a large weasel, a fox right here, member of the dog family, and one of my favorites, a lynx, which is a type of cat. All of these animals are predators that you could find here.
Fascinating. Thanks, Heather. We can take another question if we have one ready. David.
So Kay from California wants to know, should you help injured animals if you find one?
Let's see.
You want to talk about that?
That's a really good question. It depends on where you are. In our national parks and national forests, animals that are injured, you want to leave them where they are because they naturally may have been naturally injured. And I know it's really difficult to see an injured animal because we always want to help them. But in our national parks and national forests, we want to leave it alone because it's a natural part of the life cycle. If an animal dies, it becomes food for our predators, or it would just decompose and create really great soil. So in our national forests here, we say to just leave it alone.
Thank you so much for that fact,
Sure.
Heather. And let's go to a fun fact. I want to take this moment to introduce Melissa Hill. She's the Live Raptor Program Manager with Draper Natural History Museum in Cody, and her assistant Brandon Lewis, and her eagle Kateri. They're inside in the historic ranger station. So hey, Melissa, tell us a bit more about your eagle.
Thanks, Amchat. This amazing bird is Kateri. She's an adult golden eagle who lives at the Buffalo Bill Center of the West in Cody, Wyoming, just down the road from where we are today. One of Kateri's wings was permanently damaged several years ago, and she's no longer able to fly or survive on her own in the wild. We now take care of her, and she helps us teach folks about raptors like hawks, eagles, falcons, and owls, and why they are so important in nature. Today you're learning about the importance of public lands, but did you know that every plant and animal that lives on public lands is important too? Every living thing has a very special role or job to do in their ecosystem, and every plant and animal has special tools called adaptations to help them do their job. Can you guess what the job of this huge golden eagle is? She's what we call an apex predator. Now, most of you, I'm sure, already know that a predator is an animal that hunts their food. Well, an apex predator is a hunter at the very top of their food chain. These animals don't have any natural predators of their own. Other examples of apex predators include grizzly bears, lions, orcas, and humans. Now, being a top predator, golden eagles hunt all kinds of different animals, like snakes, some other birds, prairie dogs, but mostly they hunt rabbits and hares. Golden eagles also do a lot of scavenging, which means they eat dead animals they find but didn't kill themselves. And although a golden eagle is a very powerful predator, sometimes it's just easier to find your food than to catch it for yourself. Now, speaking of powerful, you probably already noticed the amazing adaptation that golden eagles use to grab their dinner. Those huge claws are called talons, and it's what all raptors use to grab their prey. On a golden eagle, those talons can be up to 3 inches in length. That's almost as long as a credit card. Now, although it doesn't happen often, golden eagles are actually able to kill prey as big as wolves or pronghorn using a combination of those huge claws and very powerful feet. But before a golden eagle can grab their prey, they have to find it first. Have you ever heard the phrase eagle eye used to describe someone with really good vision? Probably. And it's because eagles do have amazing eyesight. It's believed a golden eagle can see a rabbit 2 miles away. And they need that spectacular vision to find their prey in large ecosystems, places like you're learning about today. See, golden eagles like to live in open areas of deserts, mountains, and plateaus, rather than in habitats like forests and swamps. And prey animals, like marmots and rabbits, are not only good at hiding in holes or the spaces between rocks, they're also really good at hiding in plain sight. Those animals use camouflage to protect themselves while they search for food and go about their day. So that really impressive eyesight is important for a golden eagle. And to have that great eyesight, eagles have really big eyes. And actually, Katiri's eyeballs are basically the same size as mine, even though my head is way bigger than hers is. In fact, Katiri's eyes take up about 50% of her skull, but my eyeballs take up only about 5% of my skull. And those huge eagle eyes are packed with color receptors called cones. And those cones are so many of them in there that she can actually distinguish more colors than you or I can. And that is really important when you're trying to spot an animal that is basically the exact same color as its surroundings. How amazing is that? But these birds aren't just impressive. They're also really important to their ecosystem. Like all predators, golden eagles help maintain a delicate balance in nature. Can help ensure that those animals don't get so overpopulated that they destroy everyone's habitat. And by eating the animals they do, eagles can actually help people stay healthier. A lot of prey animals like rabbits, rats, or mice can carry diseases. And diseases like hantavirus, the plague, and salmonella can all be very harmful to humans. Now, although golden eagles are found across the northern hemisphere, here in North America, they live mainly in the western half of the continent. We're really lucky here in Wyoming because we have lots of golden eagles across our state. But unlike red-tailed hawks and great horned owls that are happy to live almost anywhere, these eagles are really picky about their neighborhoods. Golden eagles don't like to live near people, and they're easily upset by our actions. Activities like construction, riding ATVs, and target shooting can cause these birds to leave an area and never come back. And the loss of that apex predator could have huge effects on the entire ecosystem. Researchers across the West are currently studying golden eagles and the effects that our activities may have on their populations. And the impact that we can have on wildlife is something that we should all think about as we explore and enjoy our public lands. After all, it belongs to them too. Back to you, AmChat.
All right, so we are here celebrating our public lands, which means we're celebrating you. So we're gonna come to you for a question. Hey, David, anything online for us?
Well, let's see. We have some questions about the eagle, but we'll wait till we get that person back.
Yeah, let's wait till Melissa gets out.
Probably a good call.
So what is the most wild place you have ever been?
Ooh, a good bit. Wow. The most wild place. Well, it depends on what you call a wild place,
if
right?
we keep it on too long,
So I've been to some really remote places here on the Shoshone National Forest where I've been out backpacking for days and haven't seen another person. But then I've also been to some pretty wild places all over the United States, not just here in Wyoming. You can find wild places everywhere.
Fantastic.
Heather, you want to do that one too?
I think Christy did a really good job. It's hard to figure out the most wild place I've been to because here in Yellowstone we get about 4 million visits a year. But if you were to go and hike on one of our trails, you might not see very many people. So that could be considered wild for a lot of people.
I'll tell you what my most wild place was. I was driving along and I pulled over right alongside the road and saw, it was in the Tetons. I saw this beautiful mountain scene reflected off the lake. So there was like two mountains at one. I mean, I might have teared up a little bit. It was so beautiful. but also I was kind of sad that I didn't have everybody there with me to come see it. So it was the most wild place I've ever been. All right, so now let's do another question.
I have another question that just ties right into that. Lisa asks, are there lots of trails on the Shoshone National Forest?
Hi, Lisa. So yeah, there are. There are hundreds of miles of trails on the Shoshone National Forest. And depending on where you're at, I bet there's tons of trails in your backyard on public lands as well.
You could even use www.discovertheforest.org and find a green space near you. That's a fun fact.
Yes.
And here's another fun fact for ya. Now, as we mentioned, the Shoshone National Forest was the first national forest having been created over 128 years ago. So that's 128 years we've been caring for the land and serving people. Now, here on the Shoshone, they've kept the tradition alive, which is using a pack string to access the backcountry to complete restoration work. So right now we're gonna go meet Jason and Crosby, who are part of the Shoshone National Forest stock team. Hey Jason, how's it going?
Good, how are you?
Cool, man. I'm loving it out here. Can you tell us a bit about what we're seeing? What are you doing here?
So this is one of several pack strings that we maintain here on the Shoshone National Forest. And a string can be anywhere from 4 to 12 animals depending on what we're doing for the job and the terrain we're gonna be in. They call them a string because of the way we tie them or string them together to go down the trail. We generally ride horses and pack mules, and we've got 90 head of animals on our forest here. And so we use these just like somebody else might use a ATV or a pickup. So the difference is at the end of the year, we can't just shut the key off and put them in the garage. So it takes a small crew of people to care for these animals throughout the winter. And on every day, this herd of animals will eat almost a ton of feed or forage. So just keeping feed in front of them is quite a chore.
Wowzers. Can you tell us a little bit about your animals? Like who are these guys?
Absolutely.
Or girls.
So Crosby's riding what we call a bell mare. And we call her a bell mare because we'll put a bell on her neck at night, and that way we can hear her, know where she's at. All these other mules will attach to this bell mare, and so wherever she goes, they'll stay with them. So in the evenings, we'll hobble her or picket her, and we can turn all these other mules loose and let them graze at night, and they'll stay with her. And so we'll have them there in the morning. So
wow, that's pretty cool.
And then this mule here, this is Patty. She's kind of our boss mule. We use her for training new mules that we bring into the string. She's just a good old gal. She's got some lumber bunks on that we would use for carrying timbers or lumber back into the backcountry for trail work. We can carry about up to 12 feet long on these lumber bunks.
Okay.
This next mule, this is Bruce here, and Bruce he's a half draft, so he's a great big old boy, and him and Jimmy here are pretty docile, so we can put anything on them. They just go down the trail real good. He's got some kitchen panniers on here is what he's got, and these are bear-proof panniers, so we keep food and we'll cook on these. There's a stove inside of there. So, and then Jimmy here is carrying what we call a man-eat load. It's just basically a tarp wrapped up. We'll put all of our gear inside this tarp, and it's just wrapped up and tied up, and so we might put camp gear, sleeping bags, personal items. And this last mule here is Carla, and she's got a set of soft panniers on. We might carry tools and just like a man-eat load camping gear and such. Carla's our whip mule here, and the reason we put her on the back is she pays pretty good attention, and this last mule always has a little bit less time to go over obstacles, so she pays attention and makes sure she doesn't get her lead rope too tight. So,
Jason, that's super cool. And as soon as the string moved, she went and got right at the very back.
Absolutely. She knows her job, and they all like their job. So,
what do you like about your job? What's the best part about your work?
Well, I tell you, for me personally, I grew up around horses, so getting a job that I can work with horses and mules and ride in good, beautiful country, I mean, yeah, it's great. And just being able to manage public lands and that big responsibility, I enjoy that. And probably my favorite part is just the maintaining the primitive skills of packing mules and using a crosscut saw, so.
Oh, totally fun. There's nothing like using a crosscut saw. I think you already told us why you're using a team of mules instead of a.
Well, like
a
Christy
trucker.
said earlier, that 80% of this forest is either roadless or wilderness, so mechanized travel is not allowed.
Right.
So this is the only way to get in and manage those lands, keep trails cleared, and just get crews back in there to do scientific studies, and so they're our best option.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to carry all that stuff. Hey, thanks for keeping this tradition alive.
Thank
128 years, and you're part of that beautiful tradition. Thank you. See you guys back in a minute. I'm gonna head back over and take some Q&A.
Thank you.
All right, come back with you in a minute, Jason. Thanks. Oh, actually, let's talk to Christy first. You guys, hang on for the questions. I know. Okay, they're chomping at the bit to get questions. Okay, so now we've talked a bit about the history of and the importance of our public lands and the benefits of the ecosystems. We covered all that stuff. So Christy, can you help me understand what are some of the problems facing public lands?
Sure, Amchat. So kind of like Heather said before, as we're getting more and more people interested in public lands and wanting to bring them in and be a part of the public lands, sometimes too many people all at once can be bad for wildlife. So if you get too close to wildlife, it can really pressure them and can cause them health issues sometimes and scare them to the point that it might cause a wild animal to act just like that, wild. And then also, exactly, we know what happens sometimes when you get too close to bison. And we also have humans that are, coming into areas near their public lands and buying some land to have their own plot right next to public lands. And that can be a problem or a possibility, because just like Heather talked about with the antelope, the pronghorns, you've got ranchers and then you've got some public land right next to it. We've got them working together to make sure that antelope can get through and migrate through those fences. We also have people moving close to public lands, and that can cause issues with wildfires. So imagine, if you will, that you've got a cabin much like this on your private land right next to public land that might have some dead timber on it from beetle kill. And then a fire starts there. You might be worried about your cabin unless you've already taken some precautionary measures and done some things to make sure that there's, not trees right next to it. They don't have firewood right piled up against it. So there's some possibilities there and not just problems.
I like that. Thanks for sharing that picture of cross-boundary land management, having to share and work with our neighbors. I love being a good neighbor with our private and state partners. Wow, the weather is crazy
It
here.
is. It is.
Raining over there. Oh, my. All right. So thank you for helping us to understand that there's lots of things that we need to be aware of in terms of conserving our public
Right.
lands for the future generations, not only for us to enjoy, but also for your grandkids and mine. I don't have any grandkids yet.
I don't either.
Okay, cool. So what we're going to do now is we're going to go check in with Miss Dominic and her students. We are going to go check in. They're from the Wapiti School, and they have been dissecting owl pellets. So, hey there, Miss Dominic. What is it that you guys are doing over here?
Well, we're so lucky to be learning outdoors today. And what are we working on, guys?
Dissecting owl pellets.
Dissecting owl what?
Pellets.
What is this? What are you finding?
Bones, hair, feathers.
Bone, hair, feathers, and leaves? Interesting. I'm still not clear. Spencer, what is this? What is this? Tell me more.
An owl pellet, it is the remains of what the owl ate, but it couldn't be digested, so they regurgitated it.
Now, why are the owls eating something that they can't eat if they're just going to regurgitate
Well,
it?
they eat the rodent or whatever they ate head first, and then just the whole thing.
Yeah.
And then, so they spit out the wrapper? Is that what this is?
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay. Oh, wow.
So the meat gets stripped off, and then they regurgitate the bones and hair.
So they eat the meat, and then all this fur and stuff comes out.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, you're wearing gloves, and I just touched that with my hand. Fun. Yay. What's the weirdest thing you guys found out here?
Lots of hair, and well, there's lots of hair, and we found some feathers and stuff.
Hair and feathers?
I think the weirdest thing is leaves.
What was it?
Leaves.
Leaves. And that's weird because owls don't really eat vegetables, do they?
No, but leaves aren't a vegetable.
Because owls are what? What did we learn?
Owls are carnivores.
Awesome. All right. Well, thank you all so much for that. We're going to come back to you at the end of the program, so don't go anywhere. You can continue your lesson. You guys are awesome. Let's come over for a question from somewhere in the world. What do we have?
Absolutely. I have a great question from Virginia, a two-part question about Kateri.
Okay.
The first part is, how do you know Kateri's a girl? And the second is, do golden eagles migrate?
Okay, so we know that Kateri is a girl, not because of color. With most of the raptors, the boys and the girls are the same color. But the really awesome thing with raptors is the girls get to be bigger and stronger than the boys. Yeah, and Kateri is very large, and she happens to have laid eggs almost every year that we've had her. So that's how we know for sure that she is a girl. And then the other question was,
Do they migrate?
do they migrate? Thank you. It kind of depends on where you are. The further north you are, the more likely the golden eagles are to move south. Here in Wyoming, we think through our research that most of our birds are residents, meaning that they don't actually travel, but it might be just a shift in elevation. They might come a little lower during the winter and go to a little higher elevation in those summer times. Great question.
Thank you, Melissa. Do we have another question online? David? Sandy?
Absolutely.
Of course we do. Thank you, kids, for sending them. You guys are so awesome.
Absolutely, and we have a question about the mules. First, what is a mule, and can they work all day without eating?
So a mule is a cross between a female horse, a mare, and a male donkey, a jack. And so mules tend to inherit all the strong features of both. They'll get intelligence, self-preservation, and resistance to disease from the donkey side. And then from the horse's side, they'll get athleticism and such as that. They can go all day without eating. Really, the way a horse's and mule's stomach is made, they're made to eat all day, but they do very well. Anytime we stop along the trail, they'll grab a snack here and there. But yeah, they go all day without eating. We do give them water every time we can cross a water crossing or something. But yeah, food they can go without all day.
Thanks, Jason. All right, so thank you for letting us know all about this, and we're gonna go to a fun fact. All right, we know that public lands are special for multiple reasons. We heard about the threats. Now, before we end this program, let's talk to some of our experts and find out what we can all do to help conserve our national treasures. Let's start with Christy.
Okay, so what you can do is volunteer. I bet you didn't know that last Saturday was National Public Lands Day. So every year, the fourth Saturday in September is the biggest volunteer event all over the United States for public lands. You can go help restore and enhance parks and forests and waterways. It's an all ages and all abilities event. Sometimes after you get done volunteering, you actually get to go do something fun too, like maybe go for a hike, a bike ride, or a paddle. So just remember, next year, the fourth Saturday in September, you too can volunteer for National Public Lands Day.
Ooh, thanks, Christy. Here's one thing that I think we can do. So you as young people can look at the Youth Conservation Corps. Now, this is a summer jobs program for youth, and this is actual meaningful work on public lands, the stuff that we don't necessarily have the full-time staffing to do, and we need your help. So this meaningful work could look like anything from building trails or removing invasives. And there's also other things we could do, like observing. If you're a person who likes observing and making observations, you might be a candidate for being a citizen scientist. Now, citizen science is when the public takes part in the scientific process of, forming research questions, collecting or analyzing, or making conclusions about this data, or developing new techniques and applications. Citizens can do all of this. We share our observations together until we can come up with these answers to these big questions. And anyone can be a part of citizen science. The best part is it can take place anywhere, on a national forest or even in your backyard. Everyone can participate, all ages. And here's a link for a little bit more if you want to check out some citizen science work. And it's great to volunteer, but really, just come visit. These are beautiful places. We want you to come see them. So here's a special invitation to all fourth graders. You have a chance to get a free pass to go to any federal public lands across the country. That's called the Every Kid Outdoors program. And you can go to everykidoutdoors.gov and learn more about that. But here's how cool it is. You as the fourth grader, when you and your family pull up to the National Forest, you can whip out your card and say, hey, this one's on me, right? Totally free, you're getting them in. So let's go to Heather. What might you think we can do in order to help benefit public lands?
Sure, well, I think we could support work that's being done to keep our ecosystems intact. There's great value in having the land managed where it's all connected and it's large. And those ecosystem services that you were talking about in your previous video, I think they hold more value when there's a large intact ecosystem there. And also, there's plenty of recreation opportunities. You can go hiking, canoeing, kayaking, you could go horseback riding in these really large areas. It also promotes wildlife habitat, and it could even store carbon, which would help with climate change. So there's value in making sure this remains public land instead of human development.
Thank you for that. Jason, what do you think we can do to help conserve our public lands?
So maybe start thinking about your future careers now. We need people to clear trails, to fight fires. We need natural resource managers and scientists. I mean, maybe even come be a packer and work with some mules and horses. So think about coming to work with us.
Awesome, careers. How about Melissa? What do you think we can do to help benefit our public lands?
Well, I would love to see people recreate responsibly. So pay attention to your surroundings and if you're going to have any disturbing effects on wildlife or habitat. And by using responsible recreation, we can not only have fun ourselves, but we can ensure that that land stays pristine so that it's there for other people and wildlife to enjoy in the future. And always remember to observe wildlife from a safe distance. By maintaining that space, you can allow animals to act naturally and be comfortable, see their natural behaviors, and stay safe yourself.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. Hopefully that keeps everybody safe. So now we know that we can all live in ways that conserve energy, and we can conserve water and other natural resources to help reduce the effects of our changing climate. So that's a bit about stewardship. Now, remember, when we care for the land cares for us. So, thank you so much for all of your thoughts, you all. I really appreciate you. And I think we're coming up close to the end of all the time we have. So I just want to say that it's been a pleasure being your host for Great Outdoors Live today here on the Shoshone National Forest. I want to thank you students and you experts and all of you at home who've been sending in your questions. All of our scientists who are off screen and off camera, they'll keep on answering your questions for as long as possible until we have to feed them because they have to eat too. Now, I hope this is not the end of your exploration of public lands, but the very beginning. And as you come out on a distance learning adventure, go for real. Go out there and see what's really there. There are lots of ways that you can get involved in the outdoors, having fun, learning, and even helping to conserve these special places. You can learn more about Great Outdoors on our website, www.greatoutdoorslive.org. Now, please check out the evaluation of our program. It's on that same website. Every time you give us feedback, it helps us to make the next program even better. Speaking of the next program, we're excited to invite you to Smokey Bear Live. So, 2019 is the 75th birthday of the Smokey Bear Wildfire Prevention Campaign, where you learn that only you, not gonna steal his message, all right. But we're gonna celebrate Smokey Bear's birthday during a live program from New Mexico on November 7th. So be sure to check that out, www.smokeybearlive.org. Now remember, the Great Outdoors is yours to explore. And even before we go, I want to ask the students at Wapiti to do a little something fun for us. This is theirs. This is not just, we didn't just make this up. This is all them. Students at Wapiti, what did you want to show us?
We are tough, we're not scared of bears and stuff. Ready to learn, watch us soar. We're the wild things, hear us roar.
Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing your time with us today. You kids are great. Yeah. Thanks, and thanks for sharing your neighborhood with us. All right. Thanks y'all at home. See you on the next adventure.